Hi everybody, this is Burke Lyle, and I'm here to announce that I will be creating a new YouTube channel. So the name of my YouTube channel is called Burke Lyle MLB and NFL Podcast 13, and so what I'm going to talk about, mostly MLB and NFL stuff. So, first of all, I've been doing podcasts for about 3.5 years now, and I started using Podmatic in January of 2017. And I also put my podcast on Twitter and Facebook. And now these podcasts will be put on YouTube. You know, in years past I did YouTube channels, but there weren't actually videos like this right now. You know, it got hard, complicated, so I stopped. I did that for about maybe a year and a half or so. And I haven't done that since late June 2018. So now these videos, they'll be simulcast. Yes, the podcasts are still going to Podomatic, but these videos will now be simulcast, and people will have the option to hear the video version as well. So, yes. So basically, yes, I'm doing videos of these podcasts. So, and anyway, so to talk about kind of the schedule, what I'm doing. So let's just run through the kind of 12-month calendar real quickly. So my show is MLB and NFL news. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to do almost all MLB and NFL. So here I go. Let's run through the calendar. Let's go in order in January. So in January, it's the NFL playoffs in 2017 and 18. I didn't get around to doing it last year, but basically I do the NFL playoffs. I try to break it down. Yes, it can be a lot of work to try to put together. You know, really trying to study 8 teams at once, especially in the first and second round. So I do those. I try to preview each playoff round. And then I do that. So obviously divisional or wild card, divisional, conference championship, and then it's time for the Super Bowl. That's usually done in February, so I probably do my prep work in January and into February. The Super Bowl is always fun. Super Bowl is one of my favorite games to watch in February. And then February things start to die down. So then I might transition, maybe take a week or two off, and then transition maybe into spring training news of what's going on. And then in March, still talk baseball, kind of latest stories of what's going on in the game, around the league, and then transition into, you know, obviously it's the free agent, might talk about that. And then April, I may talk about kind of the latest stories of what's going on in the MLB, kind of early season storylines. It's kind of interesting. The first week of April, something can really get your attention. Like this team that you didn't expect to be good could really stand out for a few weeks in April or whatever, and then this really good team might stand out, or this star player might, you know, again, might be going through a slump or whatever, where it happened in 3 bad weeks in August or whatever, or 2 bad weeks, and you might not notice very much. But in April, things really stand out. Like how good or how bad someone's numbers look. So it's interesting to do that. Obviously, it's an NFL draft. I've never really done a draft podcast before. It could be interesting to try it out this time. I don't know yet. I'll decide later on, but obviously there's some storylines to share. But then May, mostly talk baseball, I think. You know, I might do some football, you know. Maybe share a few storylines, but again, it's kind of the quiet time. June, there might be a few storylines to share, I don't know. But mostly baseball storylines. July, same thing. August, it's kind of the transition point. You know, this past August, I did share some NFL storylines and baseball as well. Then September, usually more deep dive. I try to really deep dive into each week of the season in the NFL, and sure, I might share a few baseball stories, but really. And then October is kind of a transition month. In October, since the MLB playoffs, you know, it's one of my favorite things to watch, you know, every year. In grand weather, I don't have time to watch it live. I might wake up early or stay up usually and try to watch every inning possible of the playoffs. Even if I can't watch every inning live, I understand. I try to see all the action I can. So I talk about the playoffs. So I try to talk do multiple updates each round. So last year, usually when there's a transition in the series, or right before series, I try to talk about that. So previews, kind of updates, what's going on, what I think's going on, and in October, I may do very little to no NFL podcasts. Yeah, sure, I might spend a little time on Game Pass, maybe do the 30-minute condensed games, maybe go through a few of those each day, just to kind of know what's going on in the league, maybe read some stories in the league. But in terms of podcasting, I may not talk much about the NFL, very little, if any, in October. And then November is kind of a transition month. It's back to football. Baseball's over. And that's basically it. December is we're now in the last month of the year. It's almost all football. Talk a lot of football each week. And then, so other things I want to get to. So baseball offseason. Again, I might do a podcast or two about the baseball offseason in December or January. But here's the thing about baseball free agency. You know, the NFL free agency. In March, basically that week in March. Oh, I want to go back to March. I forgot to leave something out. Every March, right before March Madness, I do a March Madness preview show where I talk about I just do a March Madness preview show. It's kind of for fun. Yes, I do. I watch some college basketball. Not that big of a college basketball fan. I like it. Compared to the pace of the game, compared to the NBA, I like NBA pace of basketball much better than college. But I do a March Madness preview. I'm not a college basketball expert by anything, and I never talk about college basketball other than that preview show. It's just kind of a fun thing to do, kind of in the middle of spring training, before opening day, kind of right around the same time as NFL free agency. Kind of like to do that. You know, I basically fill out a bracket and, you know, just run through the podcast, you know, like I talk about MLB shows, NFL shows, heck, even for the NFL playoff podcast, I might spend hours preparing for it. For those March Madness, I just fill out a bracket and do it. It's a lot of fun. That's honestly one of my favorite and certainly loosely done podcasts of the year. It's a lot of fun. So that's what I do in March, as I try to leave out. So anyways, going back to free agency. So in the NFL, it's kind of that week in March, a lot happens. Kind of at once, you know, that Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. And then a few things happen after that. But mostly happens fairly quickly, and that's also when the trades happen too. So a lot of stuff happens then. So then, NBA free agency, comparing that. NBA, July 1st, people say, oh, like KD, Kyrie, Brooklyn, right away. Or last year, LeBron James, Los Angeles, right away. All this stuff happens pretty much July 1st, 2nd, 3rd. So by the 4th of July, pretty much everything's happened in NBA free agency, or most of it has anyway. So much happens in just a very short amount of time in the NBA. Where, well, it's a lot less popular. A lot of stuff in the National Hockey League happens pretty much right around the same time. You know, they're identical seasons. But MLB free agency is very different. It's very spread out. So the last few years. So what has happened? It's November, someone might sign or two. So things I might remember most happened last November. Kurt Suzuki signed with the Washington Nationals. That's about it. And then there's kind of the winter meetings period where a fair amount happens during that 1 week of time. So a good bit happens then. But it's not everything. Like Bryce Harper and Manny Machado. Manny Machado signed on February 19th. Bryce Harper did not sign until February 28th. A, that's the last day of February. And B, spring training games have been played for almost a week at that point. So Bryce Harper, he waited a long time before he even signed. So you see things like that, right? So MLB free agency is very spread out. That's not the only time it ever happened. Many players waited until March. Dallas Keuchel, who 2015 won the Cy Young. You could have said at the time, you know, baseball has changed a great deal since then. Even in the last 3 or 4 years, $100 million pitcher, right? Didn't sign until June, since the teams were afraid to give up a compensation draft pick. Same thing with Craig Kimbrell. So deals like that it varies tremendously. Jake Arrieta didn't sign until just about a week before the season started. So with the Phillies, so you see all these free agency. Baseball free agency is very spread out. Sure, most stuff at once happens during winter meetings, but other guys sign in January. There's so many unsigned players in February. JD Martinez did not sign until right around the start of spring training 2 years ago. So it's just so spread out. Valuable free agent players wait so long. You can imagine if the NBA, if players didn't sign until September, right before training camp, things like that. So baseball free agency is very spread out. So the point is, you go around the league, right? And you hear podcasts. I listen to the MLB Ringer from time to time. It's a good episode. I like it. And then I listen to, obviously I said Buster Olney's podcast. They're pretty spread out since there's nothing to talk about. I mean, what are you going to talk about? I mean, you could talk for 5 days in a row. Oh, the players are taking forever to sign. Yes, we get that. So it is very spread out. So talking about baseball podcasts in the months of November, December, and January, they could be really quite limited for that matter. You may not ever, maybe very little. So that's kind of the difference between baseball and other free agencies. They happen very quick in kind of a set period of time, where in baseball it's a slow process. Since obviously, one reason is post-steroid era, if you get caught taking PEDs now, you're going to get suspended for half a year, and then a full year, and then that's it. And you can forget about playing in the October that year. That's not going to happen. So the point is, in October, or in baseball, free agency takes so much longer. Since baseball teams value younger players. That's why you see all these 20-year-olds coming in. Vlad Jr., Juan Soto, Ronald Acuna. The list goes on and on. Players are coming in the league in their early 20s, when they're 20, 21 years old. Or older players are pretty much forgotten about. If you hit 30 home runs, you're not going to get a 4-year, $60 million contract anymore. Just baseball has changed that much. So that's the big difference. So do I ever talk NBA? I used to, more in years past, especially during the playoffs. I've kind of slowed down on that. I don't sure if might be some good storyline, because again, the NBA is a drama-filled league. There's always storylines. There's always stuff to talk about. 365 every month a year. Like, could be something that LeBron James said, or for an example, in July, Russell Westbrook went to Houston, so he's back with James Harden. So I very rarely talk about the NBA. I might do it occasionally. At the start of an episode, I might share a few things I might have heard during the week, but I very rarely talk about it. I may mention a few things that I might have thought from the playoffs, or what I thought maybe briefly about the finals, but I really don't deep dive in the NBA. One reason why I've done the NBA less is I think this is changing now, but certainly for the last 3 or 4 years, the league has become very predictable. Cavs Warriors, we got that 4 straight years in a row. And heck, we knew the Warriors were going to the finals last year. That seemed like a given. It did happen. And they lost to the Raptors. So I feel like it's kind of too predictable. Or you go to the baseball post, MLB. So this has been my World Series pick for months now. I said this back in February. Astros Dodgers. Well, it still looks that way. That appears to be the favorites. And don't count out the Yankees as well. They're getting closer and closer to getting back at full strength. It's a remarkable how they're just as good as the Astros, despite all their injuries. I mean, you can go on and on about their injuries. This has been going on for months now. This has been going on the entire season. And they still managed to, 91 and 49, something like that? 91 and 48. So they're going to win 100 games easily, the way they're going. So are the Astros. So are the Dodgers. Heck, the Twins might even win 100 games. So that's kind of interesting to share about Um, things like that, right? So point is, I think it's gonna be Dodgers Astros. The Dodgers, especially in the National League, are heavy favorites, right? Where kind of, well, that's what we think it's gonna be. That's far from certain. It could be Cardinals. World Series could be Cardinals A's or whatever, Cardinals Rays, or I don't know, Cubs Rays. The World Series could be something completely different from what we're expecting. A good example of that was 2014. I thought it was going to be Nationals Tigers. That's what it looked like on paper, right? Two best teams in their respective leagues. We got Giants Royals. Two teams that were wild cards that I don't even think won 90 games. The point is, you get matchups that you might not initially expect. And the NFL, predictability, Patriots is. I've been going with the Patriots pretty much for the last 4 or 5 years. But the NFC side, that can change. And typically in the NFL, I don't always pick the very best teams. That kind of upsets do happen. Like example, teams that won the Super Bowl you might not have expected to win the Super Bowl. The Packers did it this decade. So did the Ravens. That wasn't expected. So you have kind of unexpected Super Bowl champions. And upsets in the playoffs happen too. Like, 2 years ago, despite the Eagles being 13-3 and Carson Wentz getting hurt, I thought the Eagles wouldn't even beat the Falcons. They were underdogs as a number 1 seed against a 6 seed on their own field. All due to the loss of Carson Wentz. And going to the playoffs, I had no confidence in their offense. Whatever they did, it worked against Atlanta. Then what they did against the Vikings worked a little bit better. And then again, the Super Bowl, it worked again. So my thought process was, obviously, okay, they survived in Atlanta. They're not going to beat Minnesota. Look at their defense. They're not going to beat them. Their offense against Minnesota's defense, no way. I think they're up 38-7 fairly early in the third quarter. They dominated that game. New England. This is the Patriots. They're not beating the Patriots. They did. They're underdogs. So I counted them out every game. And last year against the Patriots, I thought, the Patriots, they're 11-5. They're not the same team that they once were. San Diego's better than them. Yeah, sure, they're better than them on paper. I thought, the Chargers are going to come or beat them. By halftime, Sony Michel had 3 rushing touchdowns. Blowout, right? Chiefs, it's the young Chiefs. The Chiefs are going to win. It appeared that way for a while. Great game. They won. And I thought, it's the Rams. The Rams are going to win the Super Bowl. This is kind of the upstart Rams against the Patriots. Patriots win the Super Bowl. So there you go. So, while the Patriots weren't necessarily underdogs, they're a different team. They're not like 2007 or years in past where they had 14-2 or where they just cruised through the regular season, heavy favorites. They faced adversity last year. A lot of adversity, much as any Patriots team I've seen in years, certainly in the regular season. And they managed to win 3 Super Bowls in 5 years. So there you go. If you would have asked me when Tom Brady was benched for Jimmy Garoppolo early in the 2014 season, hey, are they going to win 3 of the next 5 Super Bowls? I would have said, probably not. So there you go. So things in the NFL, things might happen that we don't expect. It's kind of in the middle. I think it's a lot closer to baseball than the NBA. But 1-game playoff, tournament, kind of March Madness like, single elimination, every game's game 7. Upsets will happen. Things will happen. So, I do enjoy the NFL playoffs. That's one of my favorites. March Madness I enjoyed a lot too. A lot of big upsets. It's kind of fun to fill out a bracket and see what happens. So obviously, like they did it 3 times. Back in 2013, I picked Louisville to win. I was right. 2015, I picked Duke. 2018, I picked Villanova. So I was been right on 3 occasions picking the national champion. But your runner-up or Final Four team, they could get upset in the first round or second round. So brackets are March Madness is very, very unpredictable. You think this is going to happen, almost never does. That's the way March Madness is. So I've been talking about different leagues and kind of how I think they are, especially league playoffs. I'm going to now talk about, do I root for any teams? Yes. In baseball, I root for the Washington Nationals. That's one of my favorite teams in baseball. I've rooted for them since 2009. I've seen them lose 100 games multiple times and seen those picks turn into Strasburg, Harper, Rendon. And this year I'm hoping they're win the World Series. Yes, I talk about the entire league in general, but I'm going to be biased. I'm a Nationals fan. That's what I'm going to root for. To win the World Series. And the other teams I like. Washington Capitals. That's the team I'm rooting for. Now hockey, I don't ever talk about hockey. I never talk about it. I might have a slight mention of it maybe during the playoffs, like, might give a few updates, like say this is what's going on here, for a minute or two, but that's it. But yes, I like to watch the Capitals. I'm watching them on NBC Sports Washington. I like hearing Joe B. Let me do a quick Joe B impersonation for you. Ovechkin fires and scores! Alex Ovechkin, the Great 8, goal number 700. That was not a very good impersonation, but I tried, okay. So, yes, I like the Capitals. I'm a fan of Ovechkin, one of the great scorers in NHL history. You know, it's fun I enjoy watching hockey. Just, what about it that I like? You know what? It's kind of like football on ice. There's a lot of hitting. There's plays where you think you're watching football, goal scoring, kind of low scoring, physical game, and overtime in the playoffs is the best. It's continuous. It's sudden death. Someone scores, you win. I mean, teams can get knocked out. So there's the good and bad of overtime, of being a Capitals fan. The good. How about Lars Eller scoring that triple overtime goal when they're down 2-0 to Columbus? That didn't happen. Columbus scores first. They're down 3-0. They almost certainly lose to the Blue Jackets in the first round. They don't win the Stanley Cup. I'm not at that parade. I'm not celebrating. Washington, D.C. does not transform. How about the other good? Yevgeny Kuznetsov knocking out the Penguins. That was as sweet as any goal. Alright? Those are the good. Or so many goals over the years, overtime goals. The bad. How about the Capitals season ending in Game 7 to the Rangers in 2015? That was pretty brutal. Or how about the Carolina Hurricanes this year in double overtime? Those things are brutal. So it depends on the side you're on. But overtime is very nerve-wracking, especially with your team. You can't relax. It's probably, I've been in a lot of situations in sports over the years. And that's probably the most nerve-wracking. Especially when you know if this team scores that's against you, your season's over, or your season extends on, or you might think, we might be down 3-0 or 3-1, or So obviously, overtime, if you win, it's great. If you lose, devastating. So I think that's one of the most fun playoffs to watch. And the Stanley Cup, I feel like it's the best trophy in sports. The Lombardi Trophy is probably 2. Commissioner's Trophy, I'm going to say 3. This is just my opinion on ranking trophies, but that's what I think. So that's fun. So obviously, you can see right now, I'm wearing my Capitals Stanley Cup hat right now. I thought that would be a good way to start the video. So, point is, those are my 2 favorite teams to watch in sports, Nationals and Capitals. College level, look, I'm going to admit right now, I don't have the same excitement But Georgia Bulldogs, that's what I'm going to root for. Obviously. You know what? It would be nice if the football team, the Georgia football team, could win the national championship. I think that would be great. But I'm going to be honest. I don't feel like I'll have the same excitement as if the Nationals won the World Series or if the Capitals won the Stanley Cup. NFL football, not as much as when I was a kid, but I'm going to say I'm a Ravens fan. If there's a team in the playoffs to root for, it would be the Ravens. The Ravens are on national TV, and they're playing anybody. I'm going to root for them. That's the only NFL team that I really seriously root for at all. So those are kind of the teams I root for the most. Obviously, the two Washington teams are the teams I root for first that I feel most comfortable sitting down and watching a game. And for me, there's not much better for me to do if I'm bored in the middle of January or November or whatever, on a weeknight in November or February. Sit down and watch a Capitals game, or in the summer to watch a Nationals game. So those are the teams that I root for, in general, the most. So yes, I am a sports fan, but I also just like watching games outside of my team. Like, I'm a huge fan of the MLB TV app. Best app in the world. Like summer days during baseball season, I'm watching baseball. You know, after the Nationals game's over, I'm probably watching the Dodgers or whatever, at least a few innings of the West Coast games. Sometimes I'll watch all of them. Or things like that. I'm a big fan of NFL Game Pass. This is what helps me do these podcasts. Is I like to try to watch each and every team as much as I can. And granted, most games are not live. You can usually watch within 30 minutes to an hour depending on what version I pick. So I'm a big fan of that app. Things like that. So it's fun. So I enjoy watching. So things like that. So again, I've been kind of giving everybody an introduction about myself and what I think about sports in general, and kind of my favorite leagues. So I'd say, review again. Baseball is my favorite, I think. Football, I think, is 2. At times, I feel like it's almost tie. But usually, baseball usually rounds out at number 1. 3, I'd say, is NHL. I was watching the Capitals and the NBC games. You know, one of my favorite announcers in sports is Doc Emrick. I recommend just look up Mike Emrick on YouTube. And I like the NBA. Not a huge fan of it. I like it though. It's fun to watch the star-studded matchups like the ABC games, the Greek Freak against LeBron or Greek Freak against the Sixers, whatever. Matchups like that. I'd say it probably is my favorite player to watch in the league at this point, the Greek Freak, Giannis Antetokounmpo. There's a lot going on. But if I could pick 2 pro leagues to cover year round, it would be the NFL and the MLB. That's why I kind of do both of them at the same time. And other sports I definitely watch for sure, but I just don't talk about, as I just said. So next up, so next podcast is gonna be a video recording just like this, which I'm gonna try to do later today actually. So this is kind of an introduction video, kind of getting the audience to know me. So I'm gonna review things since obviously I went on a long tangent here. So the podcasts, the audio version is gonna be Podomatic.com, and it's gonna go on YouTube. And no, not YouTube. It's gonna Podomatic, and then Facebook and Twitter, and then these recordings I'm doing right now, they're gonna go on Instagram, which that's the reason why I started doing these videos, so I could share my content on Instagram as well. And this exact same video will be on simulcast on YouTube and Twitter as well. So I want to get videos out there. And viewers, I'm gonna be patient with that. Hopefully it evolves over time, but right now I feel like I'm just starting over. I'm starting something new. So that's what it's gonna be like. And I must warn you, when I'm doing the actual podcasts, and most videos will be like that, if I don't have my microphone available for some reason or another, then I'll continue to do these video recordings. But for the most part, you may see me talking into a microphone, so I'm just saying the camera angle or view may look different. So every video from now on is going to be pretty much like this. I'm going to try to make as much of these videos as possible along with these podcasts. So again, thank you everybody. This is the first video, and I'm ready to start something new. So thank you for listening. This is Burke Lyle, and I will see you next time.